Welcome to Hack the Entrepreneur, the show which reveals the fears, habits, and inner battles behind big-name entrepreneurs and those on their way to joining them. Now here is your host, John Naster.
Before we get going with episode 300, I want to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Whiplash, and their founder, James Marks, who has become somewhat of a friend of mine. And I want to thank Whiplash and his company for sponsoring Hack the Entrepreneur for the past, I think, 6 weeks, all the way through December and some parts of November. It's been really, really cool. I 100% fully endorse their product. If you are running an e-commerce business, or if you're selling products physically at all, you do not want to be just dealing with those headaches, and you don't want your customers to have to deal with you dealing with those headaches. So if you were using Whiplash, who is modern fulfillment built to scale, you would not be dealing with that anymore. They've given you a special discount just for being a special Hack the Entrepreneur listener. Nobody else gets this. This is absolutely unique to you. You can get a $100 credit right now by signing up. Go to getwhiplash.com/hack, and you will not be crushed under those holiday volumes ever again. Hey, this is Hack the Entrepreneur. Thank you so much for joining me again today. This is episode 300, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm your host, John Naster, but you can call me Johnny. My guest today is a marketer, ever-evolving and learning CEO and serial entrepreneur. At the age of 15, he raised $120,000 to start a software company. The company did okay, but eventually it fizzled out and then failed. So he went to college, dropped out, and eventually graduated. Then in 2013, he co-founded Leadpages. Today, Leadpages has well over 100 employees and tens of thousands of paying customers. They've also raised $38 million in venture capital to date. In this conversation, you will learn how he runs Leadpages while only knowing what he's doing about 25% of the time. And we talk about laddering up and how to use it to start and grow your business. Now, let's hack Clay Collins. If you are running an e-commerce business or selling any sort of physical product from anywhere, Whiplash wants to be your virtual warehouse. Here's how it works. You send your products to a Whiplash facility. They have facilities in Detroit, San Francisco, Los Angeles, and London. And then Whiplash will ship it to your customers just like you would, but faster and cheaper. And with Whiplash, your products get to your customers faster, no matter where they live. Plus, Whiplash connects easily with major shopping carts like Shopify, Magento, Bandcamp, and many, many more. This allows you to get up and running faster. Remember, the holiday season and being these giant holiday volumes is a time to celebrate as a business owner, not a time to be crushed and stressed. And you wouldn't be if you were using Whiplash. Contact Whiplash and James today, so this goes down in history as the last holiday you shipped yourself. Don't get stressed out. Get Whiplash. Go to getwhiplash.com/hack right now. And for being a Hack the Entrepreneur listener, you will get a $100 credit for starting today. Go to getwhiplash.com/hack. And once again, I want to thank them for sponsoring the show. We are back with another episode of Hack the Entrepreneur. And today, to commemorate 300 episodes, we have a very, very, very special guest. Clay, welcome to the show.
Hey, John, I'm happy to be here. 300 is one of my favorite movies, so this is special to me.
So I knew that, so that's why it just was fitting, so.
Awesome.
All right, Clay, let's jump into this.
Cool, let's do it.
Clay, as an entrepreneur, can you tell me what is the one thing that you do that you feel has been the biggest contributor to your successes so far?
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing is I just kind of dive head first into the market. So it's not enough to stand, I think, apart from the market and analyze in some sort of abstract sense what the market is doing. I think it's really important to not only be a provider to your market, but to be to be your ideal customer, right? To dog food the industry, to go to conferences, to have conversations with the tastemakers and the people who are deep in whatever economy you serve. I really think that's the biggest thing. And I think that's why every business I've ever started, I started with a blog. And I think it was Brian from Copyblogger who talks about, instead of having or creating a minimum viable product, you should start with having a minimum viable audience. And that's always how I've started. So, I really believe that the best education a marketer can get is really starting a blog. Because if you can't get like 2,000 people to subscribe to your blog newsletter, what chance are you going to have of getting 10,000 people to buy your product? So whenever I start a business, I start with a blog first. And the goal is to really understand what makes the market tick. You might find when you're starting your first blog post that some posts get a lot of shares, but they don't get a lot of comments. Other blogs get a lot of comments, but they don't get a lot of shares. Some get, they get people to buy, but they don't get people to share or comment because you've activated people's desires. So they're so busy, buying the thing that you have to sell. So I'd say, start learning what makes your market tick. Start with a blog and treat every single blog post as, like you're launching something for the very first time, and, spend 20% of your time writing content and 80% of your time promoting it. So I'm really getting tactical here, but I'd say at the same time that you're starting a blog, make sure you always have an offer, along with that blog, because what good is an audience that loves a thing that you do? You could create all these cute listicles, 12 best ways to, whatever, or, they thought X until they saw this, or, whatever kind of link bait titles you can create. Those are really good, but it's hard to figure out if those are generating commercial interest unless you have something for people to convert on. And I recommend that the first thing you ask people to convert on is just a consulting offer, right? Like an hour of your time, 30 minutes of your time, something basic. Don't make any promises. Don't get into long-term coaching commitments or anything like that. Start out with a blog and an offer for an hour of your time and an email list.
Wow. You nailed it. Every follow-up question I had, you just went along and answered that too. So this seems like something that you have not lost sight of. Like, you have way beyond a minimum viable audience at this point, obviously with Leadpages.
Yep.
Yet you guys still push out a ton of new content, from webinars to videos to courses to blog posts. So is this something that you thought would maybe work till a certain scale, but it just hasn't stopped working for you, so you've just kept pushing it?
Yeah, I think as your desire to grow increases, you definitely need to build out other channels, but that doesn't mean that you ever stop investing in the original channel that worked. So when we first got started as Leadpages, we looked at other providers out there, HubSpot, Infusionsoft, etc., and we saw something really scary. We saw that HubSpot was spending over $10,000 to acquire a customer, which meant that their payback period was over 2.5 years. So, if it costs $10,000 to acquire a customer, you need the customers that stick with you on average to stay over 2.5 years to just pay back the cost of acquiring the customer in the first place. And that can not only be really expensive, but it also creates a situation where the more successful you are as a business, the more in debt you have to go, right? Even if the math works out in the long term, in the short term, you still have to pay the bills. So it requires you to do things like raise venture capital and stuff, which I don't encourage people to do at the very beginning. So our hypothesis was, what if instead of hiring a sales team and scaling that, we hired a content team that produced evergreen, a flywheel of evergreen content that attracts customers for us day in and day out, right? Like the first blog posts I wrote for Leadpages are still generating customers for us to this day. So it kind of builds on itself kind of like SaaS does, right? Like kind of like a subscription business does, right? Customers we got during the first year of business are still paying us this year. And that's the way good marketing should work. So we started out with videos, and I'm not really good at videos, but you can see some of the
Under
earlier
the stairs.
videos. Yeah, it's amazing that people still remember those. So yeah, I was under a staircase. It kind of looked like a dungeon. People used to joke that I was like, chained to a desk down there and had to churn out videos. But I made videos showing, the Leadpages product and how it worked, and that worked out so well that we hired someone just to do video, and then I moved on to the to webinars, and that worked out so well that we hired someone full time to create webinars, and that worked out so well that I started creating courses, and we hired someone full time to create courses. So there's all these different content channels you can create. People often think about content in a pretty, simplistic way. Usually they've got like a blog and maybe they're doing a podcast or something, but we went about it in a pretty systematic way. And I think we see the content landscape in Technicolor. But what we did, which most people don't do, at least I haven't observed most people doing this, is we went about this one channel at a time. We ensured that the channel that we were developing, the content channel that we were developing, worked and converted, and then we scaled it, as opposed to trying to be everywhere at once on all channels, running around like a chicken with our heads cut off. We built this out one channel at a time. And as soon as something was proven and the math justified hiring a full-time person to own that, we hired that person.
Wow, I love it. And when you say we, how many of you were at the beginning of Leadpages?
Oh man, like 5.
There was 5, like a 5 sort of team that started. Like how many co-founders?
Yeah, so there was, when we just got started, it was myself and it was Tracy Simmons and it was Simon Payne. So there were 3 of us, and there was Linda running marketing ops and support. So she ran Infusionsoft for us back when we used Infusionsoft before we had moved to Drip.
Mm-hmm.
And she also handled support. And we had a contractor in the Philippines named Raymond who put up our sites for us. And it was kind of a ragtag bunch there at the beginning. So I mean, that was pretty much the whole team, at the time we got founded.
And you had a product at the time. So like you're saying, like you should have something to offer. It wasn't consulting you offered. You had lead video, was it not? Or lead player?
It was called Lead Player. Yeah. So, I think a lot of times entrepreneurship and product development can be seen as kind of this discrete thing, but I think it's this constantly evolving, like I've heard it referred to as laddering up. So if you think about, Netflix started out with DVDs that anyone could purchase at Walmart. In fact, I believe they purchased their first DVDs at just local stores. So they started out with DVDs that anyone could purchase, but they created a distribution advantage the way they mailed them out to get ahead. So anyone could purchase DVDs. What Netflix did was they made sure that they got rid of late fees, and they were essentially a logistics company. They mailed them out to you. That worked out so well for them that they leveraged some of the capital that they had from that and started online distribution. So they licensed content created by third parties and they distributed it through their online portal. And so they were laddering up from a logistics company to a streaming company. And that worked out so well that they started paying studios to create content that was exclusive for Netflix, that they had, unlimited rights to. They didn't have to, continue paying for rights every single year. And that worked out so well for them that they started producing and financing and, essentially becoming a production house and creating their own film. So they went, to Stranger Things. So they went from a logistics company to a streaming company to a production company. And who knows what other tricks they have up their sleeves. I'm sure that they're going to extend that. So I would say our story is, we started off as a blog that did marketing, training, coaching, and consulting. And we had enough success there that we started selling products. That worked out well enough that we could afford to pay someone to create a WordPress plugin for us that was free called Welcome Gate, which helped people build their list. And that worked out so well that we came out with a paid WordPress plugin called Lead Player. And that wasn't software as a service. That was just a WordPress plugin. So people paid a one-time fee. We got to the point that where that was making $50K a month. And we leveraged that and created Leadpages. And that worked out so well that we built a product called Center.io, and we acquired a company called Drip. We like to say we aqua partnered with them because it really feels like a partnership. They run as kind of a mostly autonomous unit within Leadpages. Their founders are in the building and really running that product and carrying the vision for it. And, obviously our story's not over with. So, I don't see any of this as having really a starting point or a stopping point. It's all just an evolution, and every success you have at one rung of the ladder buys you a ticket to the next rung of the ladder, and that happens hopefully indefinitely or until a company runs out of funding or motivation.
Yeah, and so in your opinion, does this laddering up work better if you start near like lower rungs rather than trying to jump to directly taking on Leadpages at the very beginning? You know what I mean? Because you're at like your 8th or 9th rung at this point of sort of laddering up the levels. So when you say this like entrepreneurship and product sort of scape where it's kind of laddering up like Netflix did, would you suggest, like in your feeling, is that the best way to go about it?
I think you should optimize for the biggest success that you feel confident you can have. So when Elon Musk was, done with PayPal, had an exit there, he had the funds to start SpaceX, and he didn't ladder up to SpaceX. Well, actually, there was a very real laddering up within SpaceX, but that was, he had the funding sources, he had, enough personal wealth, and he had the connections to the point where he felt like he could take that on. That isn't something I could take on right now.
Right.
Going to space. But, Lead Player, when we took it on, that was something that, it was appropriate to the resources we had. And if you're just getting started, you might want to just get started with a blog and consulting. Or if you've been doing this for a while, you've got a fairly decent sized audience, you have access to cash flow on demand, or at least that if if the business you wanted to start were having problems, you could create other sources of revenue, or you could run another source of revenue simultaneously, then I'd say go for it. But I would optimize for getting a strong foothold on the ladder. And, if you aim too high, that can be unlikely. And if you shoot too low, that can be demotivating, and you'll lose time, right? So I would say it's about this kind of like zone of, optimal attack, if you will.
So it's something you have to still strive. You want to be able to reach for that ladder a little bit, but you don't want it to be so far out of reach.
Exactly.
And you don't want it to be downwards, because then it's just demoralizing to even accomplish.
Yeah. It should be a healthy challenge, but one that you can still believe in.
Well said. Well said. So your one thing is to dive headfirst into the market and then sort of live within it. Now, Clay, every business expert around here talks about this 80-20 rule. You find that 20% that gets to 80% of the results. You do what you're good at, and you delegate the rest. Clay, can you tell me something that you are absolutely not good at in your business?
Oh, I'm not good at most things in the business. So there was an interesting post by Fred Wilson where he talks about the 3 things that a CEO should be doing. A CEO should be ensuring that there are funds in the bank, that you're telling you're communicating the vision of the company, and you're hiring. And so those are the things that I need to be best at all times. And I'm pretty bad at pretty much everything else. I'm bad at advanced web analytics. I'm bad at finance. I'm still not the best with a P&L. I'm bad at accounting. I'm bad at creating sophisticated support systems that scale. I'm bad at, I don't know, everything that's really outside of my zone of genius, which is pretty much around products, product roadmap and product marketing.
And you're the CEO.
Yeah.
Nice. I love it.
Yeah.
So it's impressive because, I mean, you go through this list of all these things I'm terrible at, yet your company is like thriving, doing very, very well.
Yeah.
Yep. So you don't have to be good at everything.
Yeah, no, you absolutely don't. I'd say you do need to be good at attracting talent, or you need to be good at attracting someone who can attract amazing talent and ensure that that great folks want to be involved in what you're doing. So that's another piece. It's really easy to say, do what you're good at and delegate the rest, but there's a lot that's abstracted behind the phrase.
Yeah, totally.
Delegate the rest. You need systems to delegate the rest. You need a company that's exciting for the folks who are on the receiving end of the delegation. And of course, the folks who are, on the receiving end of delegation don't want to think about it as like, oh, you're just getting all the crap stuff off of their plate. It needs to be interesting, intellectually rewarding, stuff that is worth getting up in the morning for. You don't want to, I think a lot of times people, and this is a mistake that I think a lot of entrepreneurs make, is that they undervalue the things that they're bad at and they overvalue the things that they're good at. So a lot of entrepreneurs' first reaction is like, ugh, all this crap. I hate accounting, support. I've got to build a website. Someone has to project manage this. Ugh. And then they just go out and they find, an incredibly expensive VA, or they've got somebody that's going to handle that for them. But there is operational leverage in those things. There's someone who has a unique zone of genius in the things that you're delegating. And if you do it right, the things that you're delegating can actually become competitive advantages for your company. But you have to respect what you're delegating, and you have to understand that there are people that have built their entire careers who are thought leaders, who are experts on the things that you're delegating, and you need to find them. And ideally, if you're doing this right, they should want to sign up to work with you.
Yeah, this unique zone of genius. You've mentioned it in passing a couple times. What exactly is this?
Yeah, so on some level, it's just a buzzword that's being passed around. There's a program that I haven't enrolled in, but a lot of people I respect have enrolled in, called Strategic Coach. It's by a guy named Dan Sullivan, I believe.
Yeah, his office is like 2 blocks from my place.
Okay, awesome. So he talks about, your unique genius. I believe that's what it's called. And it's just the area where once you're operating within it, you are performing at 10x, where you're performing when you're working on other activities. Generally, others can confirm what your unique genius is, so everyone kind of agrees on what it is. And often when you're operating within your zone of genius, others actually enjoy watching you perform, right? In doing those things. So you think about pro athletes, people will actually pay to watch them play basketball or play tennis. That's a kind of unique genius. Now, you're not looking for something that other, people necessarily would pay to watch you do. At that point, you're a performer. But the sense is that others get fired up and receive energy when you're operating in your zone of genius. And the flip side of that is when you're not focused on your zone of genius. Others probably hate working with you. They don't like being in those meetings with you. They wish you just hurry up and delegate that shit already, because your significant other doesn't like when you come home when you've spent an entire day working outside of your zone of genius, because you're not alive, you're not present. In a lot of ways, you're just not yourself. And so everyone, and this is a gross oversimplification, and it's easier said than done and all that stuff, but everyone should try and optimize for spending as much time as possible in their zone of genius.
I love it. So Dan Sullivan, as a strategic coach, you said you haven't gone through that. And then with laddering up. So I want to kind of meld this all together. Like we joked about you under the stairs, the marketing guy with like a small team that has built an incredible company around it now, and you as the CEO at the front of it. So do you use coaches or do you just kind of ladder up your skills? Like, how do you stay sort of in front of ahead of your team or ahead of your company as the CEO, as things grow beyond where you probably even imagine them to grow?
Yeah. I'm surrounded by amazing folks during my day-to-day operation within the business. I feel very fortunate at our current size and scale that I don't have to go outside the building too much to find mentorship and coaching. So our chief operating officer, John Tedesco, was a mentor to me before he joined the company. He went to, Wharton School of Business. He's started a few startups. He's on the board of a startup here. He's, he could run the company, honestly, if I got hit by a bus. So, I mentored from him all the time. I'd say my co-founder, Tracy, gives me amazing advice. Often we have an incredible board, both our sort of official company board of, investors that have been involved in companies like Zynga and Fitbit and AdMeld and, SendGrid and all these amazing SaaS companies. And I am advised by them all the time. And then there's a portfolio of other CEOs that are part of that portfolio that we're in for Drive Capital and Foundry Group and Arthur Ventures that I get to talk to. So ideally, your mentors are in the building. Now, that doesn't mean you should shun external advisors or you shouldn't have an outside coach or that an outside perspective isn't valuable, but it should be icing on the cake. I think ideally you want to work with a group of folks that make you a better person and where everyone is encouraging everyone else to be their best selves. It's not like everyone working in your company is some, underpaid entry-level person whose job it is to just magnify your vision. Ideally, you kind of want to be like, a group of Navy SEALs or like a special ops team where every single person on that team is good at what they're doing. They're at the top of their game, and the team is pushing itself to do better.
And do you feel sort of like either daily or say weekly or quarterly that you're sort of pushed to your like outer reaches of like what like about business and about yourself, and you kind of have to constantly be growing into it or ahead of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I say this every once in a while because it's true. It's kind of a humbling statement, but I think I spend about 4 months being okay at my job. I spend another 4 months realizing, I spend the next 4 months, because of the pace at which we're growing and the industry is growing, I spend 4 months being good at my job. I spend the next 4 months realizing that my job has changed. I spend the next 4 months learning my new job. And then I spend the following 4 months, being okay at it, and the cycle repeats itself. So, I'm probably, okay at what I do 1/3 of the time.
Nice. Well, from there, you're doing pretty damn well.
Thanks.
So let's move to projects now, if we can.
Sure.
So you sort of told us how you laddered up through different projects as you grew the company, but now there's a big team around you. So I would like to know how this process has changed. We could talk about Drip if you want as like a big project you undertook, or I think it's Center is the new one,
Mhm.
but something like that. I just want to know what your process is as the CEO and personally, but is it a written process or is it just an internal gut process? But what do you go through right now to determine when a project could be worth yours and your team's time, energy, and resources?
Yeah, I think it really starts out with the mission statement for the org. So, what do you at a high level want to accomplish? 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. What's that change that you're seeking to create in the world? From there, people often, overestimate what they can accomplish in a year and underestimate what they can accomplish in like a decade. But figure out what you want to accomplish that year and then create a strategy for getting there. I really think it's that simple. There's no one size fits all answer to this question, but I think it's really about at a high level defining what you want to accomplish, communicating that to the company, collaborating with them on that to make sure that you're all on the same page. And then, at some point you develop a 1-year plan, and then you just figure out like what are the top 3 things we can do to make it inevitable that we'll accomplish this plan. And then you just execute like a madman or a madwoman against that plan.
How early on did your organization get that mission statement?
Yeah, it really took us a while. So we just recently locked that down. And I think the reason for that is that, that we really came from this. Like when we started Leadpages, we were just 3 people. I didn't even think it was possible that we could have raised $38 million in venture capital. I didn't conceive of a time when we would be acquiring or aqua partnering with companies. And for us, it was motivated by pure excitement and enthusiasm about what we could build. We met a software developer, and the tool set that they brought to the company enabled an entirely new business model, and we were living outside the building. In other words, we were spending the majority of our time connecting with customers, connecting with the market, and we were all just thrilled about the value that we could bring to the world through what we were about to do. And that was really the initial perspective. And I think that's actually the way to do it. I really do. I think when you're, less than 80 people, I don't know that it behooves you to get caught up on mission statements and strategic planning. I think it's probably a better idea to have 3-month plans and to collectively be energized by the change you're going to make in your market into the lives of individual people. And we're still very much energized by those things. I think now that we're over 150 people and that we're a multi-product business, so we went from a 1-product company to a 3-product company, that's, when there's a portfolio involved and there's competing priorities and competing interests across the portfolio, and frankly, you need to prioritize resources. That's when you need guiding principles that really have utility value. So we have a mission statement, we have a big, hairy, audacious goal, and we have a vision as well. And our core values help us make decisions day in and day out, right? They're not just like, be nice to each other, although that is a fantastic thing to strive for. We try and have core values that help us make decisions day in and day out.
I love it, man. I love it. Oh, this has been a lot of fun, man.
Awesome.
We've got to talk about your business in passing. Leadpages.net is the site.
Yeah.
Could you just give the quick pitch for the few people that might not know what it is at this point?
Yeah. So we have 3 products in our portfolio. The company we just aqua partnered with and acquired is Drip. So that's at drip.co. Drip is a marketing automation platform. And folks often move to Drip from like Infusionsoft or HubSpot. We recently moved from HubSpot to Drip and gained functionality, gained features, gained ease of use. And it's just been really fantastic. It makes creating marketing automation and it makes email marketing and marketing automation as easy as drawing on a whiteboard. It's a free product if you have less than 100 contacts. So you can check that out at drip.co. Leadpages is a lead generation and conversion rate optimization platform. So the purpose of Leadpages is to help you generate more leads and sales. So anywhere where someone might sign up for something on your website, whether they're signing up for your newsletter via a form, they're signing up for a webinar through a webinar registration page, they're signing up to purchase your product or your membership site through a sales page, or they've heard your podcast and they want to sign up through for your newsletter through an SMS opt-in, right? They want to opt in via text message, which is often very helpful. Leadpages can facilitate that. Our third product is called Center.io, and that is a marketing command center for creating segments that operate across your entire product portfolio. So let's say you want to create a list of people who attended your webinar, stayed for over 75% of that webinar, and watched your sales video, but haven't purchased, right? You can go into Center and say, show me everyone who's attended any webinar I've ever done through the dawn of time. Even if you sign up tomorrow, you could say anyone who ever has attended a webinar, stayed for over 50% of that webinar, and has watched our sales video, gone to the pricing page and hasn't bought. Show me that list of people so I can call them all up and finally close that sale. You can do that. Or if you want to create shopping cart abandonment flows, or you want to do something as simple as creating a list of buyers. So we have a PayPal integration. What's really difficult about PayPal is it's really hard to get a list of buyers on an automated basis out of PayPal. So let's just say you want to create a list in MailChimp or Drip or Infusionsoft of everyone who's bought your product. If they buy your product, they get tagged in Infusionsoft, they get added to a list in MailChimp or Aweber or whatever. Something as simple as that Center can do as well, but it's for creating these kind of smart segments that operate across your entire marketing stack. So you can add all the apps you use. Let's say, a lot of companies now, they've got like Zendesk and they've got Stripe and they've got GoToWebinar and they've got something like Drip or MailChimp. And you want to create a list of people who have done specific things in those different apps. Center helps there. I'd say if you're new to our universe, probably the best way to go would be to sign up for a free Drip account at drip.co.
There you go. Drip.co is the place. Anything under 100 subscribers. So, you can even start a new list there and check it out.
Yep.
Leadpages.net is the main business. Center.io is the new hub business, we're going to call it for now.
Yeah, marketing command center.
Awesome.
Yep.
There we go. Clay Collins, you are on Twitter at Clay Collins. I'm going to track down an Under the Stairs video so everybody knows what this inside joke is between us all of a sudden. It's not very inside, awesome. I guess. Probably been watched millions of times by now. But, and Fred Wilson, 3 Things CEOs Should Be Doing, and Dan Sullivan, Strategic Coach. All things we talked about today. I will put all those into the show notes for you so you can track them down easily. Once again, Clay, thank you so much. It's been a long time coming, but this is episode 300 and it was fun. So just please keep doing what you're doing, man.
Thank you. I really enjoy it. We have so much energy around the problems we're solving, and we're just thrilled about the road ahead. Thanks for your generosity and having me on the show. And I look forward to sharing it with folks when it comes out.
Very cool. Thanks. Clay, thank you very much. That was a lot of fun. I'm really happy that we finally got to do that. I'm happy that you got to be episode 300. I've admired your work for years now. It's been, I guess. And since, as we said, Under Those Stairs, I'm telling you, you probably won't ever live that down. But it's a great story. All right. So I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did and as much as hopefully Clay did as well. But we've reached the point in the show where I need to go back. I need to go back and listen as you do, as a third party listener, and see if there was something that I'd missed. So I went back. And then I went back again. That second time, I went through the conversation, there was something that Clay said that stood out to me so clearly. I'm actually not sure how I missed it while I was in the conversation and then when I listened to it back. But this last time through, this one thing that Clay said was so very, very, very clear. It was it. It was the one thing. Did you get it? Did you hear it? Let's do it. Let's find the hack.
I don't see any of this as having really a starting point or a stopping point. It's all just an evolution, and every success you have at one rung of the ladder buys you a ticket to the next rung of the ladder, and that happens hopefully indefinitely or until a company runs out of funding or motivation.
And that's the hack. Clay. This is cool. This is really, really cool because you have lived and breathed this. These are kind of words that I've heard sort of like read in blog posts and blah, 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 all that stuff. But there is no starting point and there is no stopping point. There's a stop to this year. And so that's why I think this kind of fits to me. This is the end of 2016. This is the last episode of the year. And I want you to think about this because as Clay said, every success just buys you a ticket to the next rung on the ladder, right? We can see all the people running. We were talking about SpaceX just before this. And obviously that's a huge up high rung, but every rung that's above where you are or closer to where you want to be has a whole bunch of rungs below it, right? I mean, Leadpages itself started as a blog talking about marketing. And that blog in turn built an audience. Then they hired somebody to build a free WordPress plugin that they could give away to that audience, which then led them to see that the audience wanted plugins. They built a paid plugin, or they hired somebody to build a paid plugin, which then led to the initial Leadpages, which has now grown through multiple channels of marketing. But it's all been an evolution. And this whole conversation has really been around this idea. It wasn't like Clay just picked like webinars and content and paid traffic and all kinds of different things and went at them all at once. Everything was very methodical. And so all of this, from the content and like customer acquisition channels to the product itself or the business itself, has all been an evolution. It's always about this laddering up. Keep picturing this. As you go about creating sort of your goals or what you want to accomplish in 2017, think of that final place you want to be 1 year from now, and then take a step back and look at all the various rungs of that ladder to get there. Trust me, they exist. It's been done. See how other people have do it. Ask other people for their advice, whatever it happens to be. But just look at those rungs. Don't try and jump past those because you can't. And don't start too small and don't start too high because it'll be demotivating. But as Clay said, you want to just get to that next rung because every time you do that, that success buys you a ticket to the one above it. Clay, thank you so much for being guest number 300. Thank you so much for sharing. And thanks so much for just building Leadpages for all of us. All right. This has been an absolute blast. It's been a damn fun year. 2016 was good. I hope it was as good for you as it has been for me. Yeah. Episode 300 wraps up the year. I'd say that's pretty good. HackTheEntrepreneur.com. Head over there. Get onto the email list. Going to be doing some fun stuff over there in the new year. I have a lot of cool content coming out to help you kind of kick the kind of ass that you want to kick in 2017. I've taken all your questions, all your concerns, everything you want to learn, everything that you figure I can help you with. And I'm going to be answering those one by one, and getting them out to you in a really cool way. I've got some good plans and I think you're going to really dig it. So HackTheEntrepreneur.com is the site. Hey, if you want to give me like a Christmas present, go to iTunes right now and leave me a rating and a review. Just round out the year with some new reviews. I would just love that. All right. It's been fun. Thank you so very, very much. We are back Monday, January 2nd. I want to say, unless Monday's January 3rd, but I'm pretty sure it's Monday, January 2nd. We are back in full swing, 3 episodes a week, and got some really cool guests coming your way. So once again, thank you so very much. Enjoy the rest of your year. And please, until 2017, keep hacking the entrepreneur.